lot about here in Arizona, fighting inflation and protecting family budgets. It's getting really hard to do that right now with the way that the economy is. Safe communities and getting tough on crime so that our neighborhoods are safe. Medical freedom and healthcare choices. Supporting traditional family values. Securing a border for a safer future. We know that our wide open border is causing huge problems in so many aspects of raising a family. Empowering women through economic opportunities and food safety and making America healthy again. I'm really excited about this initiative. Thank you. And so I'm just going to give you a few of the points on it, and anybody out there can find this at my website, karilake.com, if you're watching live. First of all, education, transparency, and school choice. We're going to work on policy that empowers parents with full transparency of their school's curriculum. You should not have to fight and dig and claw to try to find out what your kids are going to be taught at a school. It should be very easy to find. So we will promote legislation that makes that possible. School choice, we know a lot about that here in Arizona. It works for families. Well, we want to expand that nationwide with tax credits for private or charter schools for families, even for homeschooling and alternative educational programs. And a parent's bill of rights, codify parental rights in education, giving moms and dads the final say in their children's education. Now I want to get to something that affects so many people, and it is fighting inflation and protecting the family budget. It's getting so hard right now to budget just for the basic needs. If you were fine 5 years ago, 6 years ago, doing great, now you're looking at your paycheck and saying, how are we going to get through the end of the week? Not even, it used to be, how do we get through the end of the month when the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden administration took over and started tanking our economy. Now people are saying, how can we get through to the end of the week? These policies and the economy is so bad right now that for many families, just affording the basics is really difficult. So we're going to propose tax relief for families, especially working mothers, through child tax credits and deductions that are aimed at offsetting the rising cost of goods and services. Energy independence. This does play a big role in our budget. We're going to support policies that actually will reduce energy costs, and that will eventually alleviate some of the expensive monthly bills that we have, the utilities, household bills, and gas prices. And then we want to lower healthcare prices and costs, promoting free market healthcare reforms aimed at lowering prescription drugs, the prices of those, and making healthcare more affordable for families. Safe communities and getting tough on crime. This is so important. We all know, we just saw some of the new stats that came out, revised stats, which has kind of become a thing with this administration, where we knew that things weren't safe on our streets because we felt it, we felt the threat. And now they revised the stats, I think it was yesterday or the day before, saying, oh yeah, actually, crime is pretty bad out there. And we know it because we can feel it in our communities. So our policy focus will be to support law enforcement by increasing funding for police departments and providing additional training and resources to combat the rising crime rates, especially in neighborhoods with high family populations. We really want to focus on those neighborhoods where families are living and make sure that those are safe so that our kids can go outside, ride bikes, run around the neighborhood, and mom and dad don't have to worry about their safety. Anti-crime measures. We're going to push for strict penalties for violent crimes, especially crimes that impact children and families. We want to ensure that our communities have the tools to keep our neighborhoods safe. And then child safety programs. We will invest in child safety initiatives like anti-bullying campaigns, cyber safety for our children, teaching them the dangers of what's happening online, and programs that address child exploitation and child trafficking. Remember, this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, that's been rubber stamped by my opponent, Ruben Gallego, has lost track of 350 children that were trafficked across our southern border. And I know that every mom up here, are just like me, you lay awake at night wondering where those kids are, what's happened to those children, what kind of life are they living right now, are they alive? And so we can't have that happening when it comes to our border. And we want to protect our children as well from being exploited when it comes to online nefarious actors. Medical freedom and healthcare choices. As a policy, I want to push and protect parents' rights to make healthcare decisions for their families without government mandates, opposing vaccine mandates and other health-related mandates that restrict personal choice. COVID was a big eye-opener for so many families when it comes to our healthcare, when it comes to what our families have had to go through with oftentimes mom or dad being forced to take a shot they did not want to take in order to continue working, with children being forced to take shots that mom and dad didn't want them to have to take in order to continue to go to school. Veteran health care. We have 455,000 veterans in our beautiful state. They're some of the greatest citizens we have here. I want to ensure every veteran and their family has access to comprehensive health care, including access to telehealth services, especially for our veterans who live in the rural parts of our state. And they have the ability to choose their own doctors. I will advocate for more resources to help veterans transition from active duty to civilian life and provide support in areas like mental health services, job training, and family reintegration. And affordable family health care. We need to push policies that actually make it possible for us to have better health care for our families that we can actually use, where the premiums aren't so high that we can't afford to even use it. When one of our kiddos gets sick, we have to start making judgments whether we can get them to the doctor or not. I want to also focus on supporting family values, defending religious freedoms and the rights of families to raise their children in line with their beliefs without the government interfering. Pro-family protections, advancing pro-family policies that support mothers and children, offering prenatal, adoption, post-birth support for families. We want to see our families growing and make it easier for families who want to grow. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the border, because that's a huge issue. It's affecting really each and every one of us here. Prioritizing border security will ensure the safety of families from drug cartels and human trafficking and the illegal drugs that are pouring in. We know that Arizona has become the pipeline for fentanyl coming into our country. Almost every fentanyl death in this country can be tracked back, many of them, right here to Arizona. And that saddens me. I don't want our state to be known as the fentanyl pipeline. I don't want one more mom or dad to have to mourn the loss of a 16 or 17 or 20-year-old child because they got their hands on fentanyl. It shouldn't even be in this country, and it certainly shouldn't be coming through Arizona. So we're going to work really hard to stop the flow of drugs coming through. And we want to provide resources to state and local law enforcement to help protect communities from the negative effects of illegal immigration. It's everywhere. You can see it here in our state, and sadly, it's not only in our state, it's in all 50 states. And then this one is near and dear to my heart as a mother and one who went back to work after I had my kids. It's really hard, and unless you've been in the shoes of a mom who had to walk away from their baby and go back to work, you might not understand this, but we want to make that transition back into the workplace easier for moms. We want to make it easier for mothers, women, especially mothers, to re-enter the workforce, whether they're re-entering the workforce, when the baby's just a couple of months old or 3 or 4 months old, or whether they're re-entering the workforce after the kids have gotten into school and they think, okay, now it's the time for me to start working again. We want to make it easier for that, including help with home-based businesses, telecommuting options, and entrepreneurship. And then workplace flexibility. We would like to push policies that encourage companies to offer flexible work hours, remote work options, and support systems for working moms, such as affordable childcare initiatives. We offer this on our campaign. We've got several working moms. Some of them bring their kids to work. Some of them work from home, but we want to support women. I believe that mothers have a lot to offer in the workplace, and it's wonderful to have them in the workplace, but we have to be supportive of the fact that they're still mothers, and we need them to help raise up the next generation of great Americans. And finally, food safety and making America healthy again. I'm so proud of my friend Bobby Kennedy Jr. for his initiatives, his push to and just the dangerous chemicals that are all around us and shouldn't be there, and how they've just become more and more in every different item. It seems there's dangerous chemicals, and he's waking people up to that. I'm really thrilled that he supports the America First movement and that he is going to have a really important role in President Trump's administration to make sure that the food we're feeding our kiddos is healthy and safe, and we want to make sure that we have protections in food safety, particularly regarding GMOs and harmful pesticides. I know that we're going to have to expose a lot of what Kamala Harris' support for government-controlled price manipulations. You all heard that was one of her big economic plans to do price controls, but that will actually hurt farmers, reduce food supply, and actually drive up prices for families who are trying to make a budget. It'll make it harder for families to access fresh and healthy food, and we want to actually encourage free market, local farming, sustainable agriculture, lower costs in our food, and healthier food. So with that, I hope you will take the information. Colton's out there. He's going to get you information on this policy. I think you all have it in your hand, and would love to take some questions on that if anybody has questions. And you know the policy on this. State your name and the outlet that you're with, if you would, and then let me know what your question is. Let's start. Do we have any questions over here? Sir, what's your name in the back?
You mentioned a lot of financial policies here, whether they're tax credits or providing additional support for law enforcement. How do you propose paying for all those policies?
Well, we're going to have to cut a lot of waste. I mean, a couple of things. When President Trump wins, we're going to watch this economy grow so quickly. We're going to have to grow our way out of it, and we're going to have to cut our way. There's so much wasteful spending out there. I mean, I can think of, I'll just throw a few things out that are very wasteful. One of the things that, that my opponent wants, and before he would give raises to our military, he put out a letter demanding that we pay for sex change operations for men and women in the military and their families. That's wasteful tax dollars. We don't want that. Kamala Harris has done the same thing, demanding that people who are in prison, prisoners and illegal immigrants who are behind bars, that we, the taxpayer, pay for these sex change operations. They're so, for some reason, they're just so focused on that. It's really crazy. I don't understand it. But also, we're going to stop paying for people to come over illegally and pay for their housing and their EBT cards with thousands of dollars. That's going to save us hundreds of millions of dollars. We're going to stop funding the trafficking of human beings coming in. So that's going to save us. By the time we stop this insanity at the border with the people pouring across and the invasion, we're going to save billions of dollars. We're going to stop sending money to Ukraine for a war that's already lost. We're going to bring the two sides to the negotiating table and negotiate peace. So we're not going to have to spend money and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions that my opponent has supported, even going so far as to wave the Ukrainian flag on the floor of Congress. I find that to be so un-American. It's really shocking. So we're going to cut a lot of the absolute insane costs that these Democrats, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Ruben Gallego have heaped onto our border or our budget. But we're also going to watch as we bring back manufacturing, and that's going to bring back good, high-paying jobs for moms and dads to be out there working, and that's going to bring us more tax revenue. So we have to invest in families, guys. If we don't do it, we're done as a country. Right now, the birth rate has dropped to 1.5 per woman. It used to be, when I was a young adult, it was 2.5, and when I was a kid, it was even higher than that. We were watching our population. It eventually will collapse if we don't start having families. And so I think it's really important to support families. I think it's a national security issue and an economic security issue. We've got to start having families so that we have future Americans. We can't just keep importing populations. We've seen how that's not working in Europe, and it's definitely not working here with this invasion on our border. What's your name?
I'm touching on your Safer Communities initiative. I'm wondering if you've seen the video of Mr. Tyron McAlpin, who was arrested by 2 Phoenix police officers. He's deaf and has cerebral palsy. The charges against him for resisting arrest were dropped yesterday. And I'm wondering if you've seen the video and what's your reaction, and do you think the officers should face any repercussions?
I saw the story on that. I haven't watched the entire video, and you know that I'm a really big supporter of our law enforcement, and they don't always get everything right. That's true. They're human beings, and it's unfortunate when a mistake is made. And I believe in due process for our officers, but I want to focus on the crime that's on our streets. We have an increase in assaults that's happening, an increase in rape, an increase in murder, an increase in crimes in our stores. I've been in stores before when my kids were little and watching shoplifting happening right in front of our eyes. It's really scary to be in a situation like that. And we don't want to have our stores have everything locked up anymore. We want quality of life back, and we want to make sure that if someone's committing a crime on the street, that there's law and order. There are consequences from actions. And so I want to make sure that our police are fully staffed and that we are fully funding them. My opponent pushed legislation to defund the police. Let that sink in. When our cities were burning in the summer of 2020, when in Minneapolis, rioters burned down a police precinct, they were tipping over cop cars, throwing things at police. During all of that, you would think that my opponent would be adult enough to say, wait a minute, this is wrong, this behavior is wrong. No, instead, he started marching to defund the police, marching next to people holding signs that said the most horrible things about our brave men and women in law enforcement. He actually called the police racist, and he called them the bad guys. I know the difference between a criminal and a cop, okay? And Ruben Gallego doesn't. Anybody who wants to defund the police and take away qualified immunity, which is that protection that our officers has no business being in office. And so we're gonna fully fund our police. He wants to defund them. I want to defend our police and fund them. Your name and who you're with.
NBC News. On Wednesday, Representative Gallego said he doesn't expect you to accept the results of this race. Win or lose, will you accept the results of this Senate race?
You guys are so focused on that. What's going on? I want to get people out to vote, and we're getting people out to vote right now. And of course, if this race is run, campaign is run lawfully in accordance with the law, there's nothing more that I want to do than accept that. So absolutely, and I hope that if it's a lawfully run election, that we'll have no problems. I think everyone's worried. I know that you and the media aren't, but I think the people of Arizona are concerned about anything that could go wrong. And so we're praying that things go well. We got people out. They're going out to vote. We're voting early. We're seeing huge returns right now with Republicans voting. We're really pleased with that. By the way, if you're watching at home, get that ballot out of your mailbox if it's arrived yet. Fill it out. Get it to a drop box or a vote center, or go to a vote center and vote right now. You can go out and vote. I wish the polls were open later. They're only open between, I think, 8 or 7 in the morning and 5 p.m. at night. It's kind of hard for working people to get out and vote, but you can vote early. Starting right now, go to karilake.com/vote. Get all of the information on where to vote, how to vote, and we will swamp the vote, as they say. Name and who you're with?
Ron Hansen with the Arizona Republic. Kari, yesterday the divorce files that you had wanted unsealed for some period of time were released. The reaction seemed to be generally this was confirming a story that was known years ago. You have said that this was going to be very revelatory about Ruben Gallego. They are asking for an apology. Your reflections on that case and how you've discussed it previously.
I'm not sure why I should apologize. I didn't walk out on anybody. I didn't leave my spouse in a vulnerable state. I don't know what I think actually he probably should apologize for his behavior. And it's unfortunate that, nobody's really been covering this. It's unfortunate. I found out that the person responsible for trying to get these records was a reporter from probably 2,500, 3,000 miles away. That not one of you guys dug into that. He was the first one to start talking about his divorce. And when a reporter said, I would like to fact check what he said, and went to look for the divorce records, which almost in every case are public, he found out they were sealed. And so that reporter started digging and said, I'd like to find out why these are sealed. And a judge agreed because he's running for public office. They should not be sealed. And I had so many really strange messages from many of you yesterday. They came into our campaign office. There's nothing here, or you said that. There's just a nothing burger. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? A man walks out on his wife, serves her divorce papers, broadsides her. She has no idea this is coming. I just imagine, that happened to my daughter. If she was pregnant and we're days away from expecting our grandbaby, and she calls me, and I think she's going to be calling me about some cute little outfit she might have found, and she's crying and says that her husband is leaving her. She's just a few days away from giving birth, serves her with divorce papers right before Christmas. I'm sorry that you guys don't think that's a big deal. I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It tells me a lot about the character of that man. She had no idea it was coming. Hit her like a ton of bricks. She had to go in and deliver that baby alone. And you in the media think it's no big deal. You haven't even covered it. If I had something that revealed such a massive character flaw like that, you guys would be all over it. It's really sad. It's despicable. The media is so in bed with the Democrats right now. It's really shocking. I think there's a time for soul searching, and the time is now, guys. Any other question?
Had a follow-up regarding
Your name and who you're with?
Cameron Arcan, New York Post. Had a follow-up regarding Intel. I asked you about this a couple weeks ago. 385 people in Chandler are now without jobs after the Intel layoffs.
Okay.
That was just announced, the local cuts this week. Do you think that, given those Arizona layoffs now, that there should be some sort of either Senate investigation into how that, because the money hasn't dispersed yet. They were supposed to get $8.5 billion in grants.
Right.
That money hasn't came through yet. Do you think they should still receive that funding? And on top of that, in the Senate, would you back legislation to essentially rein these types of grant programs in?
You're talking about the CHIPS Act,
Yeah,
right? You know, when we're going to be doling out billions of dollars in help for an industry, and I think this is an important industry, obviously it's hugely important to Arizona, we've got to have some reassurance that the money's not going to be given to a company and then they're going to lay off thousands of people, 15,000 I think nationwide. And so this is just in a way the legislation was written. It wasn't written properly, and we need to make sure we have those protections in place so that we're not saying, okay, here's billions to your corporation, and then you're able to take the money and lay the people off. This doesn't make sense. We got to be smarter. And so I'm looking for legislation that's written where we have safeguards in place. The whole point to helping an industry is also to help make sure we're protecting the workers as well, right? Any other questions? Anybody over here who hasn't asked a question? All right, I'll give Ron another one.
Ron Hansen with the Arizona Republic. Kari, you mentioned earlier that as long as the election is properly run or something to that effect, can you give us a sense of how you measure that? If, for example, former President Donald Trump wins Arizona and the same folks who certify those results say that you lost the Senate race, would you accept that? How do you measure whether you think the election was properly
You know what,
conducted?
we want to make sure everything's run lawfully, Ron. And you know, you guys really concentrate a lot on this, and then you write a story that I can't stop talking about it. So I'll help you, Ron, so that you don't have to write that headline. And I will ask if you have any questions about my policy to help put families first. Because my opponent, my opponent is really despicable. And I don't ever see you guys talking about the fact that he's anti-police, that he wants to defund the police, that he's for open borders. I don't ever see you talking about the fact that he wants puberty blockers and surgeries for minors. It's so lopsided. And Ron, your outlet is one of the most least respected outlets, I think, in journalistic history. You've written 20 hit pieces on me in a row. 20. Your op-ed reporter has an obsession with me that is unhealthy. And you're doing a disservice to the people of our state. It saddens me because it used to be a decent outlet. Now it's not even suitable to potty train a dog on. And Ron, I really would hope that you would care more about your reputation. Maybe it's time to go independent, Ron, and actually do some real journalism. Anybody else have a question? I think we're done. Thank you very. Oh, I didn't give one to this lovely lady. What's your name?
Yeah, Barbara, Arizona News Radio.
Oh, hi.
Talking about your-
Did you say Barbara?
Barbara, yes. Yeah, I just want to talk to you about, of course, the problems with inflation and food.
Yeah.
It's hitting, especially with Kamala Harris. She wants to end the price gouging for food. She's
Yep.
concentrating on the food. How are you going to do that when you consider that, for the most part, we live in a capitalist society, and
We're
these
not
prices are-
going to do what Kamala Harris wants to do.
No,
Yeah.
but, yeah, well, I know that. But we live in a capitalist society, and that means everything is market-driven.
Yep.
It's all at the discretion of Kroger, Albertsons, Walmart and so forth. So how are you going to lower prices on food?
Well, I talked a little bit about it, and we're gonna start bringing down the cost of energy right away, working on that. Energy, we're talking about gasoline prices, bring that down, and it takes energy to produce things, to produce foods. It takes energy to transport food. That's gonna bring down the cost of a lot right away. But what she wants to do will end up with Soviet-era bread lines. We will end up having food lines, and we will have empty store shelves. The profit margin in the grocery business is actually very low. And so it's astounding that that's her idea, and I don't think there's anybody who supports that. I mean, if you want to see what it looks like to live in a communist country, it's going to look a lot like what we saw when we were kids, watching the lines of people waiting to get food. It's a terrible idea for what she wants to do. We're going to work to bring prices down in a way that's more sound economics. Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Go Kari!
Thank you.